What we're responding to is murder, and we were not allowed to have our expert witness on international law speak to the Nuremberg principles, which say that American citizens not only have a right, but they have a positive duty. We have a positive legal obligation. Every citizen of the world does when their government is committing crimes against humanity. I'm Brian Terrell. I live in Malloy, Iowa at a Catholic worker farm there, and I'm a co-coordinator for the peace organization Voices for Creative Nonviolence. When I was on trial last month for trespassing at Whiteman Air Force Base for the drones that are being flown over Afghanistan and Pakistan from there by remote control, I cross-examined a security guard, an Air Force captain, and asked him if walking by the base, by the housing for the soldiers, if I saw a child on the other side of the fence who was being assaulted, if I ignored the no trespassing sign on the fence and in that case climbed over and went to the child's aid, would I be trespassing? And this military policeman said he didn't know. He didn't know. And I later said this was not a hypothetical situation at all. That a few months before I'd been in Afghanistan and I met a 9-year-old child who had lost an arm and lost family members as well in a U.S. drone attack. And that little girl, 9 years old. And the technology of the drone compresses time and space in ways that they even boast about, that people are able to be in battle from comfort in a battlefield thousands of miles away. And so I believe that our action was not so much a trespass as a rescue. Well, on October 11th, I've been ordered to return to court and to find out what those consequences will be. And they are up to 6 months in prison, up to a $5,000 fine. I have a colleague who was arrested with us who pled guilty to those charges and is currently serving a 4-month sentence in federal prison. And I think these consequences are small compared to what is at stake and what is happening in the world. And this trial has been very galvanizing, especially in the area around Kansas City, Missouri, where this happened, in drawing attention to what is happening right in people's neighborhood that they wouldn't know otherwise. And should the maximum, which I believe is probably pretty likely to be the case, happen, I would in no way consider it too great a price to pay for the, I think, the real advantages that our action has brought. Our judge said that international law does not trump domestic law, but our Constitution tells us that it does. Our international law, our courts we hold responsible people from other countries. What happened in Nazi Germany that brought about the Nuremberg principles, everything that Hitler did was legal according to domestic law. The Nuremberg principles, of which the United States is a signer, testify that the international law does trump domestic law, and that when a country is committing crimes, they can't use the protection to say, well, by our law, that's legal. And in any case, this drone program is illegal according to many U.S. laws. Well, this is not being discussed in the campaign. It's hardly being discussed publicly at all, and I think that by rights this ought to be the main issue, and this ought to be the question that people are asking the presidential candidates. I think this goes against the paradigm people would expect, because in effect we have a president today who's considered one of the most liberal presidents, who's claiming for himself military powers, that far reach anything that any of the more conservative, supposedly right-wing presidents ever have before. This is very difficult for the media and the American people, I think, to grasp. I think this is a place where the two parties are most aligned, that our national interests are going to be pursued, irregardless of international law, regardless of opinion of other countries. And Mr. Obama and Mr. Romney are equally committed to following a path that many people around the world see as very dangerous, certainly illegal, and destabilizing for the whole planet. Well, I don't think the question is so much whether the American people lack empathy for the children of Afghanistan as they're just not seen. Their stories aren't told, we don't hear them, we don't, we bomb Afghanistan to try to kill Osama bin Laden, and he lives for another 11 years while thousands and thousands of children die, and then they're simply not counted. And part of our work with Voices for Creative Nonviolence, both with our delegations to Afghanistan and then our protesting the drones, is to try to bring those pictures and those names and to see the consequences of our actions on the poorest and weakest, most vulnerable members of our world community.
Do you think?
Well, I think our media is very much at fault, and our media is owned by the same people who own the politicians, and with much the same interests. We want to look at Afghanistan and see natural gas pipelines and not see schools and children and family and farms. We are not encouraged to look deeper into these situations, into these realities, even should we want to. So the American people, each of us individually, have our blinders on and have ourselves to be held responsible, but the media that we have certainly encourages the blindness of the American people.
Well, I think one of the ironies of the current situation is a president elected talking about change and hope and showing a new, more transparent government, more open government than we ever had before was promised. And this president is making claims for the presidency powers that would have made Richard Nixon blush. Eric Holder says that when the president decides, as he does every Tuesday with a group of people looking over the like baseball cards that are described, cards of pictures of people who may be a danger to the United States, that when the president decides, even if those are American citizens, that those people are a danger to the United States and should be killed, and does this on the basis of information that's kept secret, that no court will look at, that will never be released to the public, that the constitutional rights of those people to due process has not been violated, because having the president decide privately on his own information that somebody is a danger, that decision-making process does constitute due process according to the Constitution. Very frightening idea. And of course Nixon's enemies list was kept really secret. And also what was kept secret from us during the Nixon years was when President Nixon decided to bomb Cambodia. That was kept secret from us, and that was a war crime. Without any, we were not at war with any sense with Cambodia. There had been no congressional oversight, no agreement by anyone, no public statement that we were going to be fighting in Cambodia. It was a sovereign country that we simply chose to invade their airspace and bomb them, and then lie about it and say that it wasn't going on. Well, today that's happening quite openly. And the United States is sending drones not only into Afghanistan and Iraq, where, although no war has been declared, we have some semblance of hostilities there. Pakistan, who's an ally, over the objections of their leaders. Yemen, Somalia, Libya, Philippines even. Places where in no shape or form are we at war. And while the Cambodia bombing was considered shameful and one of the things that helped bring Richard Nixon down, a very disturbing thing about the drone attacks on these other sovereign countries is that the Republicans are accusing the Obama administration of leaking this information to boost Obama's popularity and to boost him in the polls in the run-up to the coming election. The very actions that had to be kept secret and are no longer shameful. Now they're a badge of honor that we have a president who's involved in wars of aggression against sovereign countries against which we are not at war. That speaks badly for us all. As Daniel Ellsberg said, that everything that President Nixon was doing as far as the civil rights of civil liberties of American citizens, the assaults that Richard Nixon was doing, the wiretaps and the burglaries, Obama is doing them now, and they're no longer illegal. He says everything that Nixon did against American citizens in the 60s and early 70s that were illegal are now legal and are now quite commonplace. And we're in a much more frightening world even than then.